G'day, good morning guys, and welcome here to Tirana, the capital of Albania. Today we start our day nice and early in the morning behind the National Art Gallery. Now you might be wondering, what am I doing behind the National Art Gallery? Let me show you, because that's going to set the tone for the video of today. Behind the National Art Gallery is a section that previously was actually blocked off to pedestrians and has only recently opened up. Now Albania has quite a dark past, and this installation here was actually very controversial with local residents who are doing everything they can to try to erase the past from their memory. And this installation here, these statues here that I'm looking at, actually opened up a few old wounds. I'm sure you all recognize this guy and this guy. But how about this guy? Do you recognize this guy? So, this guy is Enver Hoxha. He was the communist dictator here that ruled Albania for more than 40 years until the day he died. Albania was under a very, very strict communist regime for all of these years, for 40 years or so. They had complete isolation from the rest of the world. They were completely cut off. News would leak in every now and then about what was happening, but they were told every day, we are the best country, we are the greatest country, we are the happiest people. And life was somewhat similar to modern day North Korea. They weren't allowed to escape, people weren't allowed to come in, and at one point after the death of Stalin, Enver Hoxha even cut off ties with the Soviet Union and later on with China, stating that they weren't communist enough, making Albania a very poor but self-sufficient country, completely self-reliant. Now of course, being somewhat like North Korea, that meant that this country was incredibly mysterious. Today we are going to explore one of these mysteries. We are heading up north of the city, a couple of hours, to a place called Spaç. Spaç prison. Now this is a name that could still strike fear into the hearts of the older generations. Spaç prison was a very infamous camp, a very infamous prison. Spaç prison is the place where Enver Hoxha here would send all his political prisoners, where they would be tortured and they were made to work and live under very extreme conditions. Nowadays, they are just some derelict old buildings up in the mountainside. To my understanding, there is no tourist infrastructure. So today I've actually had to organize some guides and someone to take me in a four-wheel drive, because the roads are known to be quite inaccessible. Could be due to snow, but more so due to the rain we've been having around here lately. Going up in a normal car is just not going to cut it. Check out this absolutely hardcore road that you got to take to get up to the prison. Luckily we got the equipment to get up here because the road is not in good shape. We just saw a plane fly over above as well, and we were saying how back in the days, in the 70s and the 80s, commercial airliners would not have been allowed to fly over Albania. So a sight like that would have been incredible to the people here, because they were told Albania is the best country, we are the happiest, we are the most prosperous, everyone outside is dying of hunger, they're poor. And then for them to have seen planes flying over would have been incredible. Even the people living along the sea line, apparently they used to feel really sad because they knew in their hearts that over across in the Greek islands where they would see cruises and lights at night, they just knew that over there was really a better world than what they were being told for all of their lives was just a big lie. We've made it to the prison here up the long and windy road. But before we get into it and explore it, I want to present you to the guys who have facilitated today and made everything possible.
Good morning, I'm Nick and I'm Katie. We are from Commodo Travel.al and we are here to explore the famous prison of Spaç, where we do organize tours for such interesting part of the Albanian history.
Luckily the caretaker of the facility here is here. Of course there's no one else around, so he's giving us a little bit of a guided tour and explaining some of the history and I guess the story.
He says that the revolt happened before the 75 because the living conditions were very harsh. The water was very acidic and there was very little food. So one of the guys, a 20 years old guy, revolted. He went and started this rebellion inside the prison, and because of this they decided to execute 4 people. A soldier from the small building over there would come out and would tell you stop, and then you should declare your purpose of visiting the place and showing your papers, and then he would give you permission to proceed further.
So back in the 50s, they scouted this area for minerals and for things that they could mine. They brought the prisoners here. The prisoners built the camp and then worked the area doing hard labor. Before they actually had the prison to live here, they were just living in like makeshift tents of wood. And you got to think that we're up in the mountains. I mean, it's quite a nice day today, but you can imagine the middle of winter, all covered in snow, all raining, and just terrible, terrible, terrible conditions.
This is actually after 1997, so the people were frustrated and they came here to destroy whatever remained from the prison. So they took their revenge on the wall, hitting it with Kalashnikovs. The soldiers would stay and control everyone coming here from outside to meet their their relatives inside the prison. And to make it more difficult for them to visit their families, they would open all the bags that they had with them. They would mix everything, make it like a mess, and then they would say, "Oh, your meeting is not planned for today. You have to come another day." Now imagine all those kilometers inside all these mountains with no transport. They would come by foot, by walking up to here. And imagine now in the winter, minus 20 degrees. So another thing, a horrible thing that they did was that if the family coming here was a female, for example, they would use always this excuse that the meeting is not today. And the only option for them was either to walk back in minus 20 degrees or to stay inside this building where some of the soldiers would even rape them. That's why he said that let's just hope that this regime never comes back and we never have the bad luck of reliving that thing ever again. So the families of the prisoners would be able to come up until this place here, because this building was meant for them to meet with the prisoners themselves. And after this point and onward, it was prohibited for the families to proceed. It was only for the prisoners. There were the isolation cells, and it was very cold inside, only 1 meter wide and 2 meter long, and they were with open windows, and the people staying inside would be dressed with a white robe, so in case they would run away, they would be able to be spotted easily in the dark. And with such conditions, everything, every kind of illness would be able to you would get every kind of sickness here.
In just one bed were just 3 prisoners in just a small room. There are 3 rooms, so it was so during the night, which was minus 20 during the winter here. They were just with 1 robe, so the prisoners were so afraid to go there. So they were really careful to not go there.
To not break the rules.
Because if you go there, definitely you'll get some illness and probably you will die.
There used to be another prison, but for the people being jailed not for political reasons, but common criminals. Until 91. In 91 they released the ordinary criminals, and in 92 they moved all the prisoners from here to another prison, where they rebelled, they broke the doors and they just ran away. The regime fell afterwards and no one cared about political prisoners anymore.
So these stairs is the only way you can go in prison, and many times these stairs were covered by blood during maybe some protest. Everyone who tried to escape from Spaç were caught.
Wow, not a single successful escape?
Not a single successful one.
This was the hospital, actually this room and the next one. So all the people that suffered here from illnesses or accidents during the hard labor, they were brought here and they died here. Until now, there are no statistics of how many people died here. No one really knows actually.
This little room that we're in now is joined to the hospital, which is to my left. And in this little tiny isolated place is where they would put all of the people in the hospital who were sick. So they would cram them all into this one little room so that they could all kind of be sick together. And this meant that the people who were injured or wounded or just had damaged bodies or something like this would be separated from them. These are the old sleeping quarters, and you can still see on the walls drawings and graffiti from the prisoners who were trapped in here. Now the beds were stacked all on top of each other, and in fact they were so close to touching the ceiling that they would even write and draw graffiti on the ceiling. You can see that it's just absolutely falling apart here. The government has pretty much abandoned this place. They haven't capitalized on the potential for tourism it has, and not only that, but the potential to face maybe the errors from the past and to show people what life was really like back then so that they can appreciate the lives they have now. And it's just, you know, things like this you just can't ignore. You can't disregard such big and terrible chunks of your country's history. It can't just be swept under the rug. So the government has just kind of left it here to rot, and they're still to this day more focused on making money out of this area, which is what they get behind us here. This is still an active mine today.
Well, most of the prisoners here, they were like from the intellectual part of Tirana of Albania. Lots of writers, artists, doctors who were against the regime, and they made them come here and suffer. Most of them died here. I know one, which is very famous writer, is like called Fatos Lubonia. He survived, and he also survived the revolt, which the guy explained earlier. He talks about it, but it's very sad, the stories you hear from them.
In Albanian tradition, when you go to cemetery or when you get respect to the dead people, before you come at the house, you have to wash your hands. And this was used from officers when they kill or torture the prisoners, and wash their hands before go to their offices.
Of course, something that you have to keep in mind about places like these is you could think, how could another person be so cruel to another human being? And you have to remember that these guards and soldiers and officers would have been severely punished if they didn't carry out their orders. So it was like this one big, huge, complex system of fear that maintained the runnings and the goings-on of places like this. What an absolutely incredible place, and I have so much respect for the caretaker guy who is the only one really operating this place. He didn't even want to take a tip or any money from us. He was just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He says that this place must be preserved for history reasons, and it's a real shame that it's just been left to rot.
Here is the entrance to the galleries at that time. The rail for the wagons to come out used to be here. Was something interesting explained. In some weird way, the prisoners felt more comfortable here during the winter because it was warmer. Because in winter time it's lots of snow and very, very cold. And also in summertime it would be like, colder. So in other parties the suffering, but in other way, in the other side was the little bit of comfort they got by working here.
So on the very far side, over on the other side of the river, on the complete opposite side of the prison, there's a little patch where there are some new younger trees. What they used to do was to take the dead prisoners over there and put them into unmarked graves in the middle of the night, so no one knew where they were taken to. Unmarked graves, what they would do would be to write the name of the prisoner on a piece of paper, put it inside a soda bottle, and then bury that with the prisoner. So some families have been able to identify the graves of their families, but there's still many, many, many dead bodies over there.
This is a reminder of the suffering of thousands of Albanians, victims of dictatorship, And these mountains and these buildings are the reminder of the witness of the suffering. And this is the journey to the prison of Spaç, indeed. And this is a reminder for all of them who called for freedom and human rights.